I'm excited to talk about the Oilers because, the biggest stars in the game are playing on the Oilers. You got McDavid and Draisaitl as your 1-2 punch, which is a ton of talent. This is a team, sometimes you don't have to be that well run to get good, and I think the Oilers are a perfect scenario of that. I don't think their management team has done a very good job. I think they've stumbled upon the best player in the world by getting McDavid first overall, and stumbled upon another top 5 player in the world by getting Draisaitl. I believe he was the 3rd overall pick the year before in 2014. So they've just managed they have that super super high end talent that's able to carry them, and which is why they're a top 5 team out west. But what is their ceiling? What are your initial impressions? What do you think of the Oilers, Zach?
Ceiling for this year, they're obviously a great team, a lot of speed. A big pickup that I think is a little bit underrated is Andreas Antonescu.
Yeah, double
This
A.
guy he's got wheels, to say the least.
Yeah,
This guy
he's
has
a
got
talented
wheels.
third line center.
So the speed on the Oilers alone is top notch. Definitely one of the best in the NHL for sure. Yeah, they could definitely use some work on their depth. James Neal, yeah, definitely a lot of work. Their defense
they
isn't
need some
strong
wings.
either.
I like the top of their defense a little bit. I think their top 4 is all right. I like Bear. I think he's a solid young future guy. I think Larson gets a lot of hate that he does not necessarily deserve. I think he's another
He definitely
solid
deserves
top
it.
4
Yeah, he
defenseman.
definitely deserves it.
I disagree.
He had six
it
points
depends.
this year.
He had a down year, but sometimes people say like this. He's
6 point
think of him
down
as like
year?
not an NHL defenseman. I
Dude.
think that he's a reasonable second pairing defenseman.
A borderline second pairing defenseman, in my opinion, dude. 6 points
It's
On the-
unacceptable.
on a 1-for-1 trade with Taylor Hall. That is
Yeah,
unacceptable.
and he obviously is not worth Taylor Hall. But you
Dude,
can't
that's-
evaluate him solely versus Taylor Hall.
I think you can if it was a 1-for-1 trade.
No, when you're evaluating the trade, sure, then you can say they lost that trade, and that's not up for debate. But if you're evaluating whether or not Adam Larson is a good player, that's a different conversation.
He's an all right player. Like he's a
Yeah.
third pairing. If he was on the
I think he's
Avalanche
a
right
second
now,
pairing
where would he be paired?
It depends. You could put him. I think he's right around the Ian Cole range.
Yeah, so that's not that great. And Ian Cole had more points this year than Adam fucking Larson.
Yeah, he had more points, but like in an average year, you could expect Larson to have as many points too. It's not. This isn't his. This year was definitely bad. I'll give you that, but I think that he's still a second pairing defenseman on an average team.
I mean, dude, he's maxed the most points he's ever put up in a season is 24.
He's not a scoring defenseman though. It's not like It's not like
dude.
he's Tyson Barrie where you're expecting him to score goals. He's a defensive-minded guy.
But Adam Larson was also like what, a 3rd overall pick? I feel like you should be putting
Again,
up even if you're
it wasn't that. It's still a disappointing pick, but it doesn't make you worse as a player because your pick was a disappointment.
I mean, I guess we would have to agree to disagree on that one.
I mean, if you're a top 4 defenseman, you're a top 4 defenseman. It doesn't matter if you're a 3rd overall pick that was a top 4 defenseman or a 50th overall pick that was a top 4 defenseman. You're still a top 4 defenseman. That's what he is today.
Okay, so I was talking to Zach about this last night, and I personally believe that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is a bust based off the quality of pick that he was selected on.
I
And-
completely disagree. Yeah, we had this Nugent-Hopkins debate a little bit yesterday, but let's get into it here.
So, I need some like mathematician to come out and give me a formula. But in my opinion, if you're picking first overall, and there are 10 players in that same draft that come out to be better than you, I say that pick is a bust. Not to say that he's not a serviceable NHL player or even like a second line center. Like that's great. He's an NHLer, but that pick was a bust based on the fact that there was 10 guys picked after that first overall pick that are better than you in that same draft class.
And I 100% disagree with that. To me, if you're a bust, it's because you got nothing out of the pick. Disappointment, yes. You're disappointed with the result of that pick. But a bust to me means that you got nothing. Nail Yakupov is a bust. You got nothing out of that. Didn't get any value. Nugent-Hopkins, no. If you tried to trade him for the first overall pick today, he decreased in value. That's definitely a disappointment. A big disappointment. I mean, you'd like that pick back. That doesn't mean he's a bust. A bust implies that you got, at least to me, a bust implies that you didn't get anything out of that pick, and you did get something. You got a valuable asset out of that pick,
but
not as valuable as you would hope for.
Really. That's like what you're kind of missing the point on. A first overall
I'm not
pick
missing. I don't think you. I think we have a different definition of the bust, because a bust, outside of sports, in the world of sports, a bust is like, if you bust, it means you got nothing.
There's a little.
And Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is absolutely not nothing. He is something. Disappointment.
This is what
major
you're missing the point on, though.
Not a bust.
This is what you're missing the point on. The pick was a bust. The player is not a bust.
That doesn't make the pick was a disappointment, and the player is a disappointment. It's not a bust implies that you didn't get anything out of it.
No, dude, that's. So what do you think, is Eric Johnson a bust in that 07 draft?
He's a disappointment. He's a disappointment. He is not a bust.
I would say that pick is a bust.
I would completely
1,000%
disagree.
say that pick is a bust. There's
but our
probably 20
disagreement
guys from that draft class that you would pick first overall.
Yeah, I agree. Our disagreement here is not on the caliber of player.
So
our disagreement is on our definition of the word bust.
No, the St. Louis Blues busted that pick. But whether Eric Johnson, he's a disappointment. But the Blues busted that pick.
Okay, we're never going to come to an agreement on this, because our disagreement is not on whether or not these picks were successful. Our disagreement is on the definition of the word bust, and neither of us are going to change each other's mind.
No, I understand what a bust is. A bust is, dude, but I'm talking about two different things. I think that a pick. No, Billy, I'm talking about picks and players. A first overall pick, you're supposed to fucking nail.
I don't agree that there's a distinction.
I think there's absolutely a distinction.
It's the same thing.
No, I do not. Why is that?
If a pick is a bust, the player was a bust. And if a pick is a disappointment, the player is a disappointment.
No, dude.
I don't think that there's a distinction.
No, because, in draft classes, first overall pick is as valuable as it comes. And you're supposed to nail that every single time.
Yeah, and it's a
disappointment. And if there's 10
don't.
players better than you out of that draft class, and you're picking first overall, then that pick, in my opinion, is a bust, just based on the fact that you could have increased your franchise by 10 other players right behind Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. But it's not to say that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has not turned out to be a decent NHL player. But whether or not he was first overall pick caliber, that's way different. If you had to redraft, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins would probably be 15 to 20 range. And I think that just the fact that he fell that many spots after being selected first overall, that makes him a bust. But then if you're picking 10th overall and there's 30 players behind you that are better, or 15 to 20, then I think that that's a bust. It increases because of the fact that you're supposed to nail a first overall pick. And
again, I think we're on the exact same page here. The difference is we have a different definition of the word bust. Marshall, we agree. We both agree that Nugent-Hopkins was not the right pick at number 1. We both agree that there were a substantial number of players that would have been a better pick. And we also both agree that he is a quality player and a serviceable, above average, even top 6 forward. But we're never going to change each other's minds on the definition of the word bust. So let's move on here to another guy I'd like to touch on is kind of a guy who's had I don't want to call it a resurgence because he hasn't hit his former ceiling, but a better year than expected going in is James Neal, a guy who scored quite a few goals, definitely more than expected. What do you guys think? What does he bring to the table? Do you think that his somewhat of a resurgence continues, or do you think that he goes back to just kind of being an albatross of a contract?
I think that this is an albatross of a contract. He started out really freaking hot, and then after that, just absolutely cooled off.
He definitely trailed off.
He's also minus 20, which leads the entire team. Dude, I do not have any confidence in James Neal, especially being their 6th highest scoring player. So,
I would agree. He is no longer the real deal.
No.
Yeah.
No longer.
No longer the real deal James Neal.
I think that, like you said, I think this is still obviously a terrible contract.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that he can be a serviceable third liner, which is good for them because they desperately need the wings. Sorry, I choked on water a little bit there, but I definitely think if you could get rid of him, you would, but he can help you in this playoffs to an extent, and I think the fact that he came out hot is maybe a good sign because with this extended off season, maybe it's just that he wore down real quick. So if he can do it in another short burst, maybe you get something. Maybe he does something valuable for you.
Bro, this team's depth is abysmal.
Non-existent.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It's almost non-existent. It's not even. I wouldn't even say it's depth. I would just say it's the lack of any wingers. You know what I mean? They're fine at center, and at center, I think this is their depth is even, I'd say, solid. I think a double A is a really good third line center, and I mean Kyra is fine on the fourth line. Their center depth is okay. It's just the wings in general. It's not that they aren't deep. It's that they don't exist. You're playing Nugent-Hopkins on the wing, and your other guy is Kyler Yamamoto, who admittedly was really good. Right around a point per game as a rookie in about just under 30 games, I believe.
Yeah,
but other than that, you don't have anything at wing.
Dude, it's... You have a guy that scored 110 points in 71 games. Then McDavid, I mean, there's nothing really else to say about that. Then Nugent-Hopkins had a decent year, put up 61 points, which, yeah, admittedly, that's a solid season. After that, their next highest scorer has 34 points. Dude.
Oh,
yeah, it's nothing. And, I mean, Kyler Yamamoto, I think, deserves some credit because he'll be back, and he was right around a point per game when he was playing, and I think you can expect him to be a solid top six forward. But you're right, they have... I mean, Double A came in late, and he's a third line forward, but really they have 4 top 6 forwards, and they have Double A, and then the rest of their lineup on forward is just bodies.
It's bad, man.
And Len, we can also talk a little bit about goaltending here. Their two guys are Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen. I think I'd give Smith the start. Incredibly average, basically, is what I have to say about their goaltending. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's good. I think Mike Smith, we saw him for Calgary last year. He kind of stole a game. He stole game 1, really the only reason Calgary didn't get swept. And then he played well in other games, but they were just overwhelmed. I think he could get hot, but any goalie could get hot. There's nothing here that sways me either way on the Oilers. What do you guys think of the goalie situation?
Yeah, the goalies aren't... Go ahead, Marshall.
Go ahead, Zach.
I would give Koskinen the start. I think he was starting before the season ended, and I think they found kind of a road with Koskinen, and then the season ended. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Mike Smith has kind of, played his career. In my opinion, he's about done in the league.
Dude,
but
he's 37.
Yeah, he's old. But I think Koskinen gets the start here.
Okay.
I agree here. I think Koskinen also gets a start. Koskinen is 31 though. I didn't even understand. Dude.
He's an older guy too. Not young, but
he's. I mean, I guess average age for a goaltender, but I mean, he had better stats throughout the season. And dude, Mike Smith with the Flames last year was so freaking bad.
in the regular season.
Yeah.
He played solid in the playoffs.
Yeah, he did. Dude, the Avs would have swept them if it wasn't for Mike Smith.
Yeah, definitely, I agree, and I guess Koskinen definitely a good choice. I lean Smith because I like the track record of just particularly how he played last year, but I definitely understand the putting Koskinen up first, and I think that's probably what they will do. We'll have to see how it plays out. The other thing I want to I guess let's get into our verdicts. Marshall, what do you think of the Oilers?
I'm sorry to say, but I'm going pretender. If Mike Smith has 4 less points than a guy that you traded for, Taylor Hall with, they're pretenders. Mike Smith has 2 points. Adam Larson has 6. Pretenders, guys. Outside of Draisaitl, McDavid, if one of those two get hurt, dude, goodbye.
All right, Zach, what do you think?
Yeah, I got to go pretender here too. This team is just it's so top heavy that they're just gonna inevitably fall over. They just can't do it. So I got to go
Okay.
pretender.
Well, I will be the lone voice of, I guess, optimism here for the Oilers fans. I do think they're a contender, not a top end contender, but the way they played down the stretch really impressed me. Once they kind of had McDavid and Draisaitl playing on a line for a while, and then it was working for that line, but not for the rest of the roster. But once they spread it a little bit, they got McDavid coming out, and then Draisaitl kind of rolling right after him. It started working, and down the stretch, this was a really strong team. They made that push, kind of went from a fringe playoff team to a clear playoff team. Really made some noise second in the Pacific. I think that they have a shot. I think if everything goes right for them, they can make some noise. I love Double-A. I think, like I said, the wings are awful, but the centers are so good that they can balance it up a little bit. I think they're going to have a tough time, but I do think that they have a chance to contend.